The first time I noticed Daniel, it wasn't because of anything dramatic. No sparks. No moment where the room tilted or time slowed. It was just a Tuesday afternoon meeting that should have ended 20 minutes earlier. Everyone else had already started packing up their laptops, half listening to our department head summarizing quarterly projections. I remember staring at the rain sliding down the conference room windows and thinking about the laundry I still hadn't folded at home. That was when Daniel spoke, not loudly, not confidently, just calmly correcting a number in the presentation. "Sorry," he said, tapping the spreadsheet on the screen. "But that figure includes last quarter's rollover. If we leave it like that, it'll look like the increase is higher than it actually is." The room went quiet for a moment. Our boss blinked. Daniel didn't look defensive. He didn't even seem particularly invested in being right. He just sat there, hands folded, waiting. And I remember thinking that's unusual. Most people in meetings either fought to be heard or stayed silent to avoid attention. Daniel did neither. After the meeting, while people drifted toward the coffee machine, I found myself standing next to him by the window. "You embarrassed him," I said lightly. Daniel glanced at me, confused. "I did. The number thing." "Oh," he shrugged. "I wasn't trying to." There was a pause, then he added quietly, "I just hate when the numbers lie." It was such a strange way to phrase it that I laughed, and that should have been the end of it. At the time, my life was already settled, predictable. 8 years married to Ethan, a small semi-detached house that always smelled faintly of fabric softener, shared grocery lists on the fridge, Sunday mornings where we drank coffee without speaking because neither of us had anything urgent left to say. Nothing was wrong. That was the strange part. Ethan wasn't cruel. He wasn't distant in any obvious way. He remembered birthdays, fixed broken shelves, texted me when he arrived at work. We functioned well, but somewhere along the years, conversation had turned into logistics. "Did you call the plumber?" "Your mom texted, do we need more milk?" Life had quietly narrowed into tasks. I didn't notice how small that space had become until Daniel stepped into it. A week later, we ended up in the elevator. Together, just the two of us. The building's lift had that faint metallic smell that always reminded me of old coins. Daniel stood in the corner, scrolling through something on his phone. "You were right about the numbers," I said. He looked up. "They adjusted the report." "Oh," he said, almost apologetically. "Good. You don't seem very proud of yourself." He smiled faintly. Pride over spreadsheets feels like a slippery slope. The elevator dinged at the 4th floor. Neither of us moved. Then he glanced at the panel. "Oh, this is me." He stepped out, then hesitated. "Do you ever feel like meetings exist mostly so people can pretend they're communicating?" he asked. It caught me off guard. "Constantly," I said. He nodded once, as if that confirmed something he'd suspected. Then the doors closed. After that, we started talking in small fragments. In hallways, by the coffee machine, occasionally in the parking lot when we left at the same time. Nothing personal at first. Work frustrations, office politics, the strange habits of coworkers. But Daniel had this way of asking questions that didn't feel like small talk. Once he asked, "Do you actually like what you do?" Not "is the job good?" Not "are you busy?" but "do you like it?" I remember pausing longer than the question deserved. "I used to," I said. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, that happens." "No. Follow -up.no advice, just recognition." And somehow that felt more intimate than most conversations I'd had in years. The first time I realized something was changing was a Thursday evening in October. The office had mostly emptied. Rain tapped against the windows in soft, irregular bursts. I was finishing an email when Daniel appeared at the edge of my desk. "Are you still working or just pretending to?" he asked. "Pretending." "Good," he said. I was hoping for company on the walk to the car park. We walked through the quiet lobby together. Outside, the pavement gleamed under streetlights. Halfway across the lot he asked, almost casually, "Are you happy?" The question stopped me. Where did that come from? I've been wondering, he said. You seem composed, but sometimes that's just a well-maintained disguise. I stared at him. Is this your hobby? Psychological profiling of coworkers? Only the ones who look like they're thinking too much. I should have laughed it off. Instead, I heard myself say, I think my life is very stable. That's not the same thing. No, we reached our cars. Neither of us opened the doors. After a moment, he said quietly, stability can be a very comfortable cage. Then he got in his car and left. That sentence followed me home. Ethan was in the kitchen when I arrived. Chopping onions. You're late, he said. Without looking up, meeting ran over. He nodded. Dinner was quiet. The television filled the background with some crime documentary neither of us really watched. At one point Ethan said, we should probably repaint the hallway next month. Okay. Another pause. Also the washing machine made a weird noise today. I'll look at it tomorrow. The conversation ended there, and suddenly the silence between us felt enormous. Over the next few weeks, Daniel and I talked more, not intentionally. It just kept happening. One evening we stayed in the office kitchen long after everyone else left. We talked about childhood homes, about the strange loneliness of adulthood, about how people slowly become strangers to themselves. At some point Daniel leaned back in his chair and studied me. You think too much before answering, he said. I'm careful. You're afraid of what? He held my gaze for a long moment, of saying something true that might change things. The room felt smaller after that. Nothing physical happened, not even close, but something else began to grow, a quiet awareness, the way I noticed when he entered a room, the way conversations felt sharper, more alive when he was around. It terrified me because I understood exactly what it meant. One night, as we walked to the car park again, I said abruptly, we should probably stop doing this. Doing what? This? He looked genuinely puzzled. Walking to our cars? You know what I mean. Daniel studied my face. Then he nodded slowly. Because you're married. Yes. A long silence stretched between us. Finally, he said softly, that seems like a reasonable boundary. But neither of us moved. The next few weeks were careful, polite, professional. We avoided the long conversations, avoided the parking lot walks, and yet the awareness didn't disappear. It just sat there quietly, like a sealed envelope neither of us dared open. Then one evening, after a long client presentation, we ended up alone in the elevator again. The doors closed. The lift hummed downward. Daniel stared at the floor indicator. You look tired, he said. I am. Is it work? No, the word slipped out before I could stop it. He glanced at me. Marriage? I exhaled slowly. It's not bad, I said. That's the problem. What do you mean? It's fine. The elevator slowed. Before the doors opened, Daniel said quietly, sometimes fine is just the slowest form of leaving. The door slid open. Neither of us stepped out immediately, and in that suspended moment, standing between floors and decisions, I realized something terrifying. The affair hadn't started with a touch or a kiss. It had started weeks earlier. In conversations. And questions. In the quiet, dangerous space between honesty and restraint. And by the time I understood that, I wasn't sure how to step back out of it. Daniel stepped out first. I followed a second later, and we walked through the lobby without speaking. Both of us aware that something had shifted in a way neither of us could honestly call accidental anymore. Outside, the air had that cold metallic edge that comes just before winter settles improperly. My breath fogged in front of me. Daniel shoved his hands into his coat pockets and looked toward the car park, then back at me. We should keep some distance, he said. The sensible part of me felt immediate relief hearing him say it. It sounded like the right thing, the adult thing, the sentence a decent person says before damage becomes visible. Yes, I said, but the word came out flat, almost lifeless, and I hated that he probably heard it. He gave a small nod. Okay, then he left. I stood there for another moment, under the yellow light outside the office entrance, feeling not righteous or reassured, but strangely bereft. That was the part I couldn't forgive in myself. Not the attraction, not even the secrecy beginning to form around it. It was the grief, the private sense of loss over giving up something I had no moral right to want in the first place. At home, Ethan was on the sofa with his laptop open, half watching a football match with the sound low. You ate? I asked, slipping off my shoes. He looked up. I waited. There is pasta in the kitchen. Sorry, it's fine. He said it easily enough, and maybe he meant it. That was the problem with Ethan. He rarely turned discomfort into language. He let things pass, or appear to pass, until I couldn't tell whether we were peaceful or simply numb. I reheated the pasta and stood at the counter eating it while he watched the television. We spoke in fragments. Your sister called. About what? Christmas. Oh, you need to ring her back. Okay, that was us, most nights. Not hostile, not cold, exactly. Just reduced. A marriage boiled down to practical updates and low-level fatigue. Sometimes I try to remember when we had last talked in a way that left any impression after the conversation ended. Not a discussion about bills or family visits or the leaking tap in the downstairs bathroom, but something real, something with risk in it, something that required either of us to arrive as a full person. I couldn't remember. That realization should have made me more compassionate toward him. Instead, it made me restless. For the next 10 days, Daniel and I did what we'd said we would do. We kept our distance. No lingering in the kitchen. No walking out together. No deliberate stops at each other's desks under flimsy work-related excuses. If we crossed paths in a meeting, we stayed within the edges of professionalism. And yet I felt him everywhere. I noticed when he laughed with someone else. I noticed when he was out sick one Monday and the office seemed oddly flatter, as if some invisible current had gone dead. I noticed that I was noticing, which only made me feel more ashamed. One Tuesday afternoon, I went into the archive room looking for an old contract. It was one of those narrow back rooms no one liked because the overhead light flickered and the shelves smelled faintly of dust and cardboard. Daniel was already in there, crouched beside one of the lower cabinets with a file box open. He looked up when I came in. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then he said, with dry politeness, "You appear to have found the least cheerful room in the building." I almost smiled. I was about to say the same thing. I should have turned around. There was enough space for politeness, not enough for ease. Instead, I stepped further inside and started scanning labels on the shelf across from him. We kept a formal distance in our words for perhaps 30 seconds. Then he said quietly, "Are you angry with me?" The question landed harder than it should have. I kept my eyes on the files. "No, you've been avoiding me. We agreed on that." "That isn't an answer." I closed the drawer harder than necessary. "What exactly would you like me to say, Daniel?" He stood up. The room seemed even smaller with both of us on our feet. "Nothing that isn't true." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "Fine. I'm not angry with you. I'm angry that this is even a thing I have to manage." He watched me carefully. "Because you're married, yes, and because..." There it was again. That infuriating way he had of standing near the edge of my self-control and refusing to step back from it. "And because," I said, forcing the words out, "I like talking to you more than I should." Something in his face shifted then. Not triumph, not pleasure, something sadder than that. He looked down briefly, then back at me. "Okay," I gave a brittle laugh. "That's all? What do you want me to do with that?" "I don't know." He held my gaze. "I like talking to you too." No one moved. The room felt so quiet I could hear the hum of the broken fluorescent light above us. Then footsteps sounded in the hallway outside, and the spell broke. Daniel stepped back first, reached for a folder on the shelf beside him as if that had been his purpose all along, and said in a normal voice, "I think legal has the revised copies in storage B." I nodded, equally artificial. "Right, thanks." I left with nothing in my hands and a pulse that wouldn't settle for the next hour. That night, Ethan asked me if I wanted to go away for a weekend in January. It was so unexpected that I looked up from my plate. Where? He shrugged. Somewhere quiet. A hotel, maybe. We haven't been anywhere in ages. There was no accusation in it. No dramatic plea to reconnect. Just a practical suggestion, almost tentative in its own way. And because of what had happened that afternoon, because guilt makes ordinary kindness feel like indictment, I immediately felt defensive. Why now? I asked. Ethan frowned slightly. Why not now? I just mean, you don't usually care about things like that. He put his fork down. That's not fair. I knew it the second he said it, but instead of softening, I hardened further. I didn't mean it like that. You said it like that. The silence that followed wasn't loud, but it was denser than our usual silences. I could feel him withdrawing in real time, not dramatically, just incrementally. The way someone pulls a hand back from a surface that turns out to be hotter than expected. After a moment he said, "Forget it," and that should have been the point where I apologized. It was sitting right there, simple and available. But shame is a stubborn thing. Once it gets into a conversation, it starts disguising itself as pride. So I said nothing. We finished dinner in near silence. Later, as we got ready for bed, Ethan brushed his teeth and asked whether I'd seen the electric bill. I said yes. He said we should compare providers after Christmas. I said fine. We slid back into the familiar shape of logistics. As if the brief possibility of honesty had been an error we both preferred to correct, lying awake beside him. I stared at the ceiling and felt a deep, ugly split inside myself. Daniel was not the cause of my marriage unraveling. That was the line I kept repeating. He was simply exposing a weakness that had already been there, a hollow place, a long accumulation of unspoken disappointments and accommodations. That was the merciful version. The version that made me seem less cruel. The harsher truth was that whatever had been missing at home, I had still made a choice the moment I let myself hunger for being seen by someone else. A week before Christmas, the office had its annual holiday dinner. It was held in a restaurant everyone pretended to like more than they actually did, with low amber lighting and expensive food served in portions small enough to feel insulting. People drank too much because it was one of the few sanctioned occasions to say what they really thought under the disguise of festivity. I almost didn't go. Then I decided not going would look more suspicious than going. Ethan didn't want to attend. Spouses were invited, but he had a headache or said he did. I didn't press him. On some level, I was relieved. The dinner started harmlessly enough. Speeches, bad jokes, the usual strained cheer. I sat halfway down the table between Mia from compliance and a junior account manager who talked too loudly about property prices. Daniel was near the other end, close enough that I could see him if I looked, far enough that I could pretend not to. For the first hour, I succeeded. Then during dessert, Mia leaned toward me and said, "Are you and Daniel working on something together?" I felt my stomach tighten. "Why?" She shrugged. "Nothing. You two just seem to have one of those quiet colleague dynamics." I laughed, hoping it sounded natural. A quiet colleague dynamic? You know, office friendship. The intense kind where people claim it's about spreadsheets. I forced a smile. That sounds very cynical. Mia smiled back. I work in compliance. Cynical is part of the job. She turned away to answer someone else, but I barely heard the rest of the conversation. My face felt hot. Maybe it meant nothing. Maybe she was teasing idly, the way people do at work when they sense emotional weather but don't know if it will turn into rain. Still, it frightened me how little had apparently remained private. Later, people migrated toward the bar area in loose groups. I ended up there too, mostly because leaving too early would have drawn attention. Daniel was standing near one of the tall tables, listening to our department head complain drunkenly about headcount restrictions. When his eyes met mine across the room, he looked away first. That should have made things easier. Instead, I felt the absence of contact as sharply as contact itself. I was reaching for my coat near the entrance when he appeared beside me. Leaving? He asked. Yes. He hesitated. Do you want me to call you a cab? You've had wine. I'm fine. I know, he said. That wasn't what I meant. There was too much unspoken in his voice. I reached for my scarf and nearly dropped it. He bent instinctively to pick it up at the same moment I did, and our hands brushed. It was barely anything. A touch so small it could have been ignored, but neither of us ignored it. I looked at him. Really looked. The noise of the restaurant receded behind us, laughter and glass and music blurring into something distant. There was no innocence left in that moment. Not after everything we had not said. Daniel straightened slowly, scarf in hand. His voice was quiet when he spoke. You should go. It was the right thing to say again. But this time it sounded strained, as if it cost him something. I took the scarf from him. Yes, he stepped back. I walked out into the freezing night and stood on the pavement waiting for my taxi. My heart beating with the heavy, disorienting force of someone who had crossed a line without moving more than an inch. 2 days later, Ethan found me staring at nothing in the kitchen. What's wrong? He asked. Nothing. He was still in his work clothes, tie loosened, one hand resting on the back of a chair. He looked tired, older than he used to, or maybe just more visible to me suddenly, because guilt has a way of turning the neglected person in the room into something almost unbearable to look at. You've been somewhere else lately, he said. I laughed too quickly. I'm standing right here. He didn't smile. You know what I mean. I turned back to the counter and started wiping a clean surface with unnecessary concentration. I'm just tired. You're always tired lately. So are you. That's not really the point, is it? I put the cloth down. What point are you trying to make, Ethan? He paused, and I could see him considering whether to keep going. In earlier years, he would have pushed into discomfort if only to settle it. But time had made him more careful, and not always in a good way. Finally, he said, I don't know. It feels like every conversation with you now is happening through a closed door. That was such a precise description of our marriage that for a second I forgot to defend myself. He misread my silence. Maybe I'm wrong. No, I said softly. You're not wrong. He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw a flicker of something vulnerable pass over his face. Hope, maybe. Hope that this might become one of those rare honest conversations married people tell themselves will fix everything if only they can survive it. Instead, I ruined it. I just think we've been like this for a long time, I said. His expression changed immediately. So this is about me. I closed my eyes for a second. I didn't say that. You implied it. I said we've been disconnected. We've both been busy. It's more than busy. Then, say what it is. I looked at him and found I couldn't. Not because I didn't have words. I had too many. Years of them. Resentments so small and cumulative they sounded petty when stated aloud. The way he stopped asking follow-up questions once he had the basic facts of my day. The way every attempt at intimacy became scheduled, practical, efficient. The way we'd both let comfort replace curiosity and then called it maturity. But beneath all that, hiding in the center like rot, was a more immediate truth. There was another man in the room with us. Even in his absence. So I did what cowards do when honesty threatens to expose more than they can bear. I said, forget it. Ethan stared at me, then laughed once under his breath without humor. You can't open a door like that and then tell me to forget it. I'm not opening anything. I'm tired. I don't want to fight. He nodded slowly. Right. That night he slept turned away from me. After Christmas, the office slowed for a week. Many people were on leave. Daniel took 3 days off, and I hated how aware I was of his absence even while surrounded by leftovers, family messages, and the annual dead stretch between the holidays and the new year when time feels padded and unreal. Ethan and I went to my sister's on Boxing Day, smiled through lunch, discussed train delays and rising prices and how quickly everyone's children seemed to be growing. We looked, I'm sure, like a perfectly functional married couple. There is a special kind of despair in realizing how easy it is to perform normalcy once you've done it long enough. On New Year's Eve, we stayed home around midnight. As fireworks sounded faintly in the distance, Ethan kissed me and said, "Happy New Year, Happy New Year," I said back. His hand rested briefly against my waist, familiar and gentle. For one fragile second, I thought maybe this was salvageable. Maybe marriages were not meant to feel luminous all the time. Maybe the disappointment I carried was childish, shaped by impossible expectations. Maybe what mattered was steadiness, endurance, shared history. Maybe that should have been enough. Then, as we pulled apart, I had the horrifying thought that if Daniel texted me at that exact moment, my heart would leap. I went to the bathroom and sat on the edge of the tub with both hands pressed over my face. Sick with myself, the first message Daniel sent outside work came on January 4th. It was just one line, "Did you survive the holidays?" I stared at it for a full minute, then I typed, "Barely. You?" His reply came almost immediately, "Same. That should have been the end." Two colleagues exchanging harmless post-holiday misery. Instead it opened something. The messages stayed sporadic at first. A complaint about returning to work. A joke about the office heating breaking again. A photo of the gray sky above the station platform with the caption, "January has declared war on morale." None of it was explicit. None of it would have looked like betrayal to anyone scrolling casually through a phone, but that was the danger of it. Emotional affairs do not arrive wearing obvious names. They disguise themselves as relief, as wit, as being understood without having to explain the whole backstory every time. Soon, the messages slipped later into the evening. One night, he asked, "Do you ever think people get attached to versions of themselves that only exist around certain other people?" I stared at that for a long time before replying, "Yes." A few seconds later, "That sounded loaded." I wrote, deleted, wrote again, "Maybe it is." There was a long pause. Then, "I don't want to make your life harder." I should have seized the sentence and ended everything there. Instead, I replied with the truth, "I think it already is harder." Another pause. Then, "Because of me." My hands shook as I typed, "Because of what I let myself feel." His answer did not come for nearly 5 minutes. When it did, it was only this, "I know." I put the phone face down on the bed and felt something inside me tip past the point where denial could still be called ignorance. A week later, we were both kept late preparing for a board review. By 8 o'clock, most of the floor had emptied. I was in a meeting room surrounded by printouts when Daniel knocked lightly on the glass. "I'm going to get coffee," he said. "Do you want one?" I should have said no. I said yes. He came back with 2 paper cups and set one near my laptop. "You look terrible," he said. "Thank you. You know what I mean." "Yes." He stood there for a moment, one hand still around his own cup. There was strain in his face now, visible even when he said nothing. Whatever this had become, it was costing him too. He looked toward the corridor to make sure no one was nearby, then lowered his voice. "We can't keep doing both things." I looked up at him. "What two things?" "Pretending it's nothing and acting like it isn't." My throat tightened. "So what do you want?" He gave a small, pained laugh. "I've been trying very hard not to answer that question." "Then maybe don't." He nodded. "Fair." He turned as if to leave. Then I said, before I could stop myself, "I don't know how to fix my marriage just because this happened." He stopped. I immediately wished I could drag the words back into my mouth. Not because they weren't true, but because they were too revealing. They made clear what had been silently shaping my thoughts for weeks, that the problem at home was no longer abstract. It was now measured against another possible emotional life. Daniel didn't turn around right away. When he finally did, his expression was careful. "Are you trying to fix it?" The question hit me like an accusation, though he hadn't raised his voice. "Yes," I said. Then, because lying too cleanly would have been unbearable, I added, I don't know. He absorbed that without rescuing me from it. That's the part that matters, he said quietly. Not me, whether you actually want to. I looked down at the papers on the table, the charts and forecasts blurring uselessly. I used to think wanting to stay and choosing to stay were the same thing, and now? I swallowed. Now I'm not sure. He stood very still. Then don't turn me into an answer. The shame of that sentence was immediate and deserved, because somewhere, in some hidden and cowardly part of myself, I had already begun doing exactly that. Not consciously, not cruelly, but in the dangerous human way people use one relationship to illuminate the poverty of another, then mistake illumination for destiny. I know, I said. He nodded once and left. That weekend, Ethan asked if I wanted to go out for dinner. We were in the supermarket car park loading bags into the boot when he said it, almost casually. There's that Italian place you like. We could go Friday. I looked at him, surprised. He avoided my eyes, focused on fitting a bag of vegetables beside a case of water. Friday? Unless you have plans. The sentence was neutral, but not entirely. There was something probing underneath it. Not suspicion exactly. More like someone testing a floorboard he no longer fully trusted. No, I said. Friday is fine. We went. The restaurant was warm and noisy, full of couples leaning over candles and families pretending not to be annoyed with one another. For the first 20 minutes, we did what we always did in public. Slipped into the well-practiced rhythm of a long-term pair. We discussed work, my mother's blood pressure, his colleague who had resigned abruptly before Christmas. It was competent, almost elegant in its own way. Two people performing familiarity so smoothly that an outsider might have mistaken it for closeness. Then the main course arrived, and Ethan put his knife and fork down and said, "Are you unhappy with me?" I stared at him. He held my gaze. "Please don't tell me you're just tired." All the noise in the restaurant seemed to sharpen around us. Cutlery against plates, a burst of laughter from the next table, glasses clinking at the bar. I looked at the candle between us and said, carefully, "I think I've been unhappy for a while." He took that in without moving. "Why didn't you say anything?" The honest answer was that I had, in pieces, over years, but not in a way strong enough to survive our habits. The more brutal answer was that I had adapted to the unhappiness until another source of emotional life made adaptation feel intolerable. "I don't know," I said. "That's not true." "No," I said quietly. "It isn't." He leaned back slightly, not far, just enough to create distance where there hadn't been any. "So tell me the true version." I looked at him and felt, beneath the guilt, a flicker of anger. Not new anger, old anger. The kind that comes from having one's emotional labor ignored until it accumulates into resentment, then being asked to present it neatly once it's too late. "We stopped trying," I said. "A long time ago." He frowned. "That's not fair." There it is again. What? That word. Fair. As if this is a courtroom. "Because you talk like I did this to us." I almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think I don't know I'm part of it? Then talk to me like I'm in the room with you." The sentence hurt because it was true. I had not been talking to him as if he were truly there. Not for weeks, maybe longer. He looked at me for a long moment, then asked the question I'd been dreading, though I had half known he would ask it eventually. "Is there someone else?" I could feel my pulse in my throat. This is the moment, I thought. Not the beginning, not the end, but the moment where a life either remains technically intact through omission or splits open around a truth that can't be repackaged once spoken. My first instinct was denial. Fast, protective, almost reflexive. Not because there was an affair in the conventional sense I could point to. No hotel rooms, no lipstick on collars, no explicit messages full of declarations. Just 1,000 smaller betrayals. The kind people minimize because nothing visible has happened yet. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. Ethan watched me, and in the space before I answered, something changed in his face. He understood before I spoke. Not details, not scope, but enough. There is. He said. It wasn't even a question anymore. I felt suddenly cold. It's not, he laughed once, short and disbelieving. Don't do that, it's not what you think. Then what is it? I looked down at my untouched food. I haven't slept with anyone. He went still. You say that like it's the important threshold. No, have you kissed him? The word him landed heavily between us. I hadn't even said Daniel's name, but Ethan had already made the leap, whether from instinct or from some detail he had been collecting without fully understanding. No, but there is a him. I pressed my fingers together under the table so hard they hurt. Yes, Ethan turned his face away for a second, staring toward the window. When he looked back, there was no shouting in him, which somehow made it worse. Who? I hesitated, his eyes sharpened. I know him, don't I? Yes, he nodded slowly, as if each small confirmation was building the thing he had already started to picture. From work, yes. He sat back and exhaled through his nose. For several seconds, he said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice was painfully even. So while I'm asking you why you're disappearing from our marriage, you've been giving those parts of yourself to someone else. Tears sprang to my eyes then, not because I felt wronged, but because the sentence was devastatingly accurate and I had no language left to soften it. I didn't mean for it to happen. His expression hardened in a way I had seen only a handful of times in our entire marriage. People always say that when they didn't mean to get caught by their own conscience. I had no defense against that either. The drive home was quiet. Not our ordinary quiet, but something ravaged. Once, at a red light, he gripped the steering wheel and said, almost to himself, I knew something was off. I just kept telling myself not to be ridiculous. I looked out the window and said nothing. At home, he went upstairs without another word. I stayed in the kitchen for nearly an hour, coat still on, staring at the reflection of the overhead light in the black glass of the garden door. When I finally went up, he was sitting on the edge of the bed. Was it him? He asked without looking up. The question confused me for a second. What? The reason you started noticing we were broken?